live. I'm gonna wait and make
All right,
sure
share.
it pops up sounds good. All right. So, yeah, man, that whatever mic that is a sensitive mic, my friend Jason.
It's still doing it now? I thought we had it.
Little bit. It for whatever reason. I think it's just because when no one's talking, it hears your mic, and so it is like, hey, here's this. But all right, Here we go. We're going. So, hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird, and today we are launching a brand new, hopefully monthly show here on the channel called Horror from the High Desert. And we are doing it with in collaboration with three amazing channels that you can see around me. First, I am joined by Jason from Sinister Cinema Reviews. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And my air conditioner.
Special guest, the AC. And then moving on to Braden from the Braden Timmons channel. He's been doing YouTube for a while. He's done a couple of awesome Halloween fan films. Of course, I didn't give that lead in to Jason. Jason also has been doing YouTube for a while. He's killing it. He's crossed the 20K, so excellent work for him. But yeah, Braden, welcome to the show as well.
Thank you for having me. Super happy to be here.
Of course. And then last but certainly not least, Davey Deathray joins this panel show. And of course, we've had Davey on the channel a number of times in the past. So it only made sense for me to bring him onto this show because why are we doing this show? It is the fact that we are all here in the high desert of Phoenix, Arizona, or the surrounding areas. So Davey kind of gave me the idea for this show when we were hanging out working one day. I was like, oh man, you know, Davey's here, Braden's here, Jason's here. I should just try and get a show together. And there's even, Jason brought to my attention, there's even more people here in the desert that do YouTube that we are hoping to get on as guests going forward and stuff like that. But Davey, thank you for joining the show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to be a part of it. And you can say last and certainly least. I'm the new kid on the block.
That doesn't mean anything. We don't look at it that way.
Doesn't mean anything.
I'm seeing here, sorry to interrupt, Cecil. I see that you're apparently a little low in terms of your mic.
Sure.
Tyler is saying that in the chat, saying that your mic is a tad bit low.
All right, let me fix that. First, let me start eating it. That'll probably
Can't
help a
overhear
little
me. I can't overhear. I hear him over the AC.
bit. Yeah, I'm right. I'm going against the AC. Okay, hang on. Let me get into the sound and pump it up. And recording.
Turn my headphones up.
Turn
them
my
shits
headphones-
up.
Oh my God, it's way low. Shit, thank you. Okay. God damn, it was at like 25% instead of 75. So there, that this should make a healthy difference, y'all. There, is that better? That should be a lot better, hopefully. Hit us up in the chat, y'all. Let us know if that's better.
You can always count on Tyler letting you know if something with the,
Yeah,
the
dude.
technical aspect isn't firing.
Tyler's clutch, man. Tyler's clutch.
You know, this is like a test run, guys. First
it's
stream,
much
new show. It's a test, so thank you.
Perfect, he says. Okay, great. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Should have checked on that ahead of time. You know, unfortunately, can't think of every damn thing. But yeah, so here we are. We are four boys in the desert, and we are here for this first episode, at least, to talk about horror in the high desert, which is a sort of, that term has kind of come into the zeitgeist over the last year or two because of a few different movies. The Outwaters, I believe, was the first one, and then a bunch of other ones started to come out that tied into it. I haven't watched those. I'm sure that Jason has, so at the very least he can speak to those, because Jason watches everything. So that's one of the big reasons to have this gentleman on the show, outside of his winning personality. But of course, there are tons of horror movies set in the desert, so I thought it would be fun, at least for this first episode, to focus on that. Before we get into that, though, I figured we could do a little catch up, a little, hey, how you doing? And then maybe talk about a couple of the recent horror news stories that have dropped, because a couple have dropped in the past few days. And then we can jump into the high desert portion of the show. As we want to establish here for the shows going forward, anytime you have a question or some input, please put it in the chat. We will, of course, try and go back to the chat regularly to get your guys' feedback and input. As you can see, my microphone would still be low if we weren't to do that. So thank you guys very much for joining on this maiden voyage, but I say let's get into it. So first, let's do real introductions for everyone. Jason, why don't you give everyone a little bit of a background on yourself and your channel and all the kind of stuff that they can find over there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I did my job correctly, everyone's channel is in the description box down below. So if you are not subscribed to either Jason, Davey, or Braden, make sure you click those links and go and subscribe to them. Toot sweet. So Jason, please, a little bit of background for everyone.
I think I've been doing YouTube for 8 years, if memory serves. I think I'm coming up on 8 years, or it's been 8 years. I'm not honestly sure. I think like most of us, you started the channel because you just don't get enough interaction with horror fans in reality. All the people you hang out with are kind of like, you're that weird horror guy. And it's pretty rare you get to run into other horror people, and unless you're frequenting cons all the time, you just don't get to talk about the genre all that much. And the Facebook groups and anyone old enough to remember the good old IMDb message board days, that was really your only outlet to discuss this shit, unless you were lucky enough to have some people around you that talked horror, which I just never did. So of course I wanted to start the channel just to get a dialogue out there with other horror fans, but also because I just felt like the state of YouTube videos at that time, and it's becoming even more, unfortunately at this point, a lot of like negativity and hate trains towards the genre. And I'm somebody who just genuinely unabashedly loves the genre, especially like lesser known films or like films that are ganged up on and hated by the majority of people. So I just wanted to start a channel to, fall in love with the genre again, and hopefully find others that still love these movies like I do. And it's been a wonderful journey. I mean, of course we run into dicks here and there, but for the most part we get to interact with very cool people, and I've gotten to meet a bunch of people over the years from the channel, and it's been fun. It's been great. That's how I met Cecil originally. Mm-hmm. I think it was very, very, very early on, within the first year, even less, of me doing the channel. I ran into you
at a screening at a theater, I believe.
It was at an Alamo Draft House, and we were there to see, I think, Victor Crawley.
Oh,
if I remember correctly,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
With Adam Green in attendance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just walked up to you and Fuego and introduced myself. And, you never know how people are going to react. You guys had about as many subscribers as I do now then. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, they're at a place that's unobtainable for me. I have 2 fucking subscribers. They're not even going to know who I am. So it was really cool, though. I mean, we all hit it off pretty good. And then from there, we started hanging out, doing Mad Monster and shit together. And mm-hmm. I've known Cecil for a long time now, and it's cool to actually do a video right now with people I know, because I've met you in person, and I typically do these videos with people I've never met. So I've actually physically met all of you in reality, which is cool. So yeah, I love the genre, and I'm always willing to talk about it any day of the week.
Awesome. Hell yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining up with the show. And yeah, I mean, as you said, I've known Jason for a long time, and yeah, he introduced himself at that point, and Fuego and I at the time were like, damn, because we didn't have a lot of people coming up to us being like, yo, I watch your channel at the time, and so it was pretty cool for us too. And outside of Jason being a tall, sexy drink of water, it was just nice to meet a nice person that liked our stuff. And that he was doing it on his own too, starting to get it going. It was like, okay, cool. We always try and be, supportive of people starting out in the YouTube space, especially the YouTube horror space. Same thing with Davey. Braden hadn't been here for very long, so I met Braden a lot later. Otherwise, I'm sure similar things would have happened between us as well. But speaking of Braden, why don't you give us a little bit of history about your channel, and what you got going on, my friend?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I'm super thrilled to be here with just a bunch of awesome creators. So, my background is very similar to Jason's. I just really think that it's like I'm a big movie guy, as you guys are, outside of horror as well. I just love film and everything. So I'm that one friend that always likes to talk about movies. I will over talk about movies and everything like that. And that's kind of where I was like, you know what? Okay, that was the idea of starting my YouTube channel initially, was to just talk about as many movies as I possibly can. And then I was like, you know what? I feel like that's kind of overdone nowadays. And it wasn't really until I did my reaction to Halloween 2018, that my channel started getting any sort of, traction. So it kind of became like a Halloween news channel and a full-on horror movie channel, is basically what I did from basically summer of 2018 all the way to now. It's really kind of gotten me to meet a whole bunch of different just awesome people within just the film and horror community. That's the thing that I love just about being on YouTube and being able to talk about movies, because that's exactly what I love to do. It's like a really fun and exciting hobby to have the opportunity to, go to these screenings, talk to you guys. Cecil, I think the first screening I ever saw you at was The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which was literally all the way back in what was it, August or something like that, this past August.
Yeah.
So, that was the first time I had ever run into Cecil at a screening, and I met you in person last year at Mad Monster when we were there for the Dylan's New Nightmare premiere, which was a ton of fun. I met Jason at one of the screenings too, right, Jason? I think that's how I ended up meeting you. I think
Abigail? No,
it wasn't Abigail. It was a little sooner than that, but I think you guys were there with Tony and Victoria, and we were talking. It was Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. That's where we ran into each other. So yeah, and then Davey, we met at H45. That's where we met for.
You guys were there too?
Yeah, we were at H45.
Ships passing in the night.
And now I've seen Davey at a couple screenings with you, Cecil, too. So, it's just really cool to run into everybody and have conversations and stick around after the movies, kind of getting some insight to just sit there and really talk about it. So, nowadays I try to attend as many screenings as I can because, whether it's horror or just, film screenings, I love to be there. I love to be present. I like to see what's up and coming and everything. But yeah, the whole reason I started my channel was to just kind of have movie conversations online, and horror is my main niche, which is what I love to do. So that's what all of my mainstream reviews are. And outside of that, I run a podcast with my girlfriend Destiny called Fear Freaks, which is just great because we get to go live every single week and talk about different topics, subtopics within the horror genre and everything. So really starting YouTube was the best thing that I'd say I could have ever done, because I get to meet so many different people, my girlfriend included. So just really, really awesome community of people that I've just been so thankful to be a part of. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
You and I both met our ladies off of our channels.
Yeah. It's all because I had joined Killer Flicks after Wolfman's gotten art. Barry from him, he invited me, and that's where I ended up connecting with Des. So yeah.
Shout out to Barry. I just did a show with him 2 days ago.
Yeah, I did one with him about a week ago. we launched his 2 new podcasts, Jason.
Yeah, he has his new podcast. That's awesome. I saw that you guys were involved with that. I got to watch those episodes still, but good for him. That's great.
It's funny, you guys met your ladies through YouTube. Fuego's met 3 of his ladies through YouTube. So
running a business.
Hey, when you're as sexy as Fuego, what are you gonna do, right? You got to beat him off with a freaking Stephen King stick of some kind. So that brings us to last and certainly least, Davey. Davey, what are you doing here? Why are you here? How did we get to know each other? Where are you? Yeah, why are you here at such a early stage? No, I'm just fucking around.
Yeah. So, I'm one of those guys that I watched YouTube. I've been a huge YouTube audience member since like, I don't know, 07, 08, right around there. Really loved the whole world of content creation. Angry video game nerd kind of got me early on, and then from there it was like, just diving into other interests. So I grew up as a big film fan, big music fan. Like I grew up playing music, fell in love with punk rock at about age of 12. But even before that, fell in love with like horror films and comedy films, stuff that's a little just kind of on the fringe, outside, a little bit outside of the establishment. Although, of course, some of those, horror IPs have definitely risen to that level where people recognize them, But I grew up just liking weird kind of off-kilter stuff. So I think fell in love with like Jaws as a very, very little kid. And then started watching like Child's Play and the Halloween movies when I was like 8 or 9. So like late 80s, something like that. And something about the roller coaster of horror film that I really enjoyed. I loved the fact that it was like scary but safe. It was, just an exciting genre to watch and see depicted because it's so fantastical and sometimes over the top, sometimes closer to real life and actually scary. But there was something that fascinated me about that feeling. So, when it came time to, start thinking about putting together my own channel, which is something I've wanted to do for over a decade and just didn't because of, I don't know, fear of failure or other stuff taking time up in your life, I decided enough was enough, that I like to talk. I've got some things to say, and there are people out there that feel similarly as I do. So I was like, well, there seems to be community out there, leaving the creative world of playing music and everything, because people just get older, lives change. Not every band can stay together forever, especially when you're not doing it for a living. So, took some years off after playing music and felt just a huge creative void in my life. And so in an effort to just get back out there, be a part of that community, get a little bit more of my mental health back, just because I think being creative kind of helps you climb out of those holes and ditches we can dig up for ourselves. Decided to start a channel and talk about, focusing on horror film, of course, but just sort of, whatever I'm passionate about or interested in. So, really from there, it was the day I decided to start the channel, I saw the pre-screening of Dylan's new Nightmare at Mad Monster. But didn't meet you until the following month. So reached out for an interview, got to interview you, Cecil, and Vincent DeSanti. And that sort of like helped propel me to having, a friendship with you and being brought on your channel. And so, just really enjoying the YouTube ride so far, catching a little wave of momentum here. So it feels really good. More collaborations are opening up, and it's really awesome to be a part of like a panel show, because I watch these types of shows all the time. I love just being able to toss a topic around and all that kind of stuff. So really excited to be along the ride with you guys, and looking forward to what we can discuss here.
Heck yeah. So again, before we get into the topic at hand, we won't obviously need to do those introductions every time, but I do think that talking about some of the recent news stories would be a good idea for the show. And the most recent one I can remember, unless I'm mistaken, which I very much might be, is that apparently Universal is not letting their Dark Universe moniker die. In fact, they're opening an entire section of the Dark Universe, or of a theme park, an entire section of Universal Orlando is going to be a Dark Universe theme park, where they're going to build out an entire town with all of the original Universal monsters kind of roaming, and you can interact and take pictures, kind of like Harry Potter World, except it'll be a year-round Dark Universe area. I personally think, even though the Universal monsters are not my favorite, and I've only actually seen 3 of those original movies, I think the idea is really cool, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. I have done the Universal Monster Halloween Horror Nights attraction before, and those are always fun. So having it kind of be year round and having it be a whole area, a whole part of the world essentially that you can go to and just kind of live in that production space, I think that's a really cool thing personally. What about you guys?
I don't care. I mean, I'm not a Universal horror fan at all when it comes to Frankenstein, Dracula, all that stuff. It does nothing for me. I think it's wonderful for people who are excited about it. I don't live in Florida. It's not enough for me to fly out there to do it, so I'll never see it. But if someone's really excited for it, that's fantastic. I just personally don't give a shit about pretty much. I don't really go beyond the mid 50s for horror. The only reason I ever touch the 50s is for Hammer horror. I don't care about anything from the 30s, the 40s, the 20s, any of that stuff. It just does nothing for me. And I think that I don't know what's really compelling them to do this, because they continue to keep failing with this Dark Universe thing, even though I thought Dracula Untold was fine. It was fine. I thought The Mummy was terrible, which was weird because I always liked Tom Cruise movies, so I was honestly shocked. But maybe with Halloween Horror Nights, they have a lot of it. I don't know. I've been to Halloween Horror Nights, and every time I go over to the Universal stuff, it's not that packed. I don't really see the call for this, so I don't really understand why they're doing it. But if someone's excited, that's cool. I think it's a weird venture.
I can agree with that. Yeah, it is a weird call considering it's the oldest characters in horror that they're trying to market to the newer generations. That is a bit curious.
Yeah.
I personally am counter opposite of Jason. I'm pretty excited. Awesome. I think that it's cool to do for a theme park sort of traction, especially because you don't just want to, because they're doing another Harry Potter world at their Epic Universe. They're doing the Ministry of Magic, which is definitely cool to expand that world in there. They're doing Super Nintendo World. They're doing that How to Train Your Dragon thing, and then they needed one additional aspect, and I do think that one is or could be appealing to horror fans because, you've got a ton of people that love the Halloween Horror Nights stuff that they do, myself included. I look forward to that every single year. Since I've moved out here, I've gone the last 2 years to Universal Studios Hollywood, since it's close. So I very much enjoy that element. And Van Helsing was one of my favorite movies growing up, which has Frankenstein, werewolf, Dracula. It's got everything that I very much enjoyed. So I personally love all 3 of them, and I'm excited to go check it out. Now I'm not going to be rushing to buy a ticket because I'm sure that it's going to be expensive as hell when this thing opens. But I definitely do plan on getting out there to check it out. I do think that it's a good route to go, and they've also been keeping, as if you guys know Halloween Horror Nights, these last few years alone, they've done Universal Monster houses, which I didn't really like the last one that they did, but Bride of Frankenstein from 2021 was really good. And then there was one a few years ago. I can't remember. It was the year that they did Halloween. I don't remember what that one was, but the one from this last year was Hunchback of Notre Dame, all that stuff, and I just didn't really care for it, so I was just eh. But I know that they plan on. I think they're doing another one this year, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I personally am excited to check it out eventually, just for the year-round stuff. So.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of as to why they'd choose to do this if they were going to make a horror version of or a horror section of the park is that the Universal monsters are the most family friendly of all the horror properties out there. They're the least scary for kids, and they can walk through, and it's and that's about the extent of it. You know what I mean? So that would be probably another huge reason why they'd opt for the Universal monsters instead of anything else in horror that came after that.
They're also like very iconic, and
True.
visually just everyone knows who they are instantly.
Yeah.
And plus, I would assume that at this point with Universal, not only is it like they're kind of like married, right? It's like they're the Universal monsters, but also it's like it's their property. Like everyone who worked on those is dead and gone. Like they 100% outright own those, and they probably don't have to deal with any copyright issues or anything at this point, as to where any newer stuff they'd have to like give cuts to directors and this and that. And it's like, there's people, it's just this is the 30s. These are almost 100 years old. These people are long gone. So royalties are no concern of theirs.
True.
Yeah, I mean, if this is a ploy to get people interested in a dark universe, I think that's a strange way to try to go about that. But I mean, I think I love the Universal monsters. I think they're really, really cool. Now, are we getting the old style depictions? Are they literally going to be people in black and white, like costumes and makeup? Because I think that would make it as immersive and awesome as possible. If you're going to go that route, I think that would be kind of the way to do it, to totally like buy into it. But maybe also, kind of like what you're saying, Cecil, kid friendly, and also, isn't Florida very popular for older people from New York that want to go retire?
Yeah.
And those older people were kids when those movies were probably getting recycled in the theaters and stuff like that. So maybe there's a little bit of that element there. But
Come on,
I think
Timmy,
those
these are the real monsters. Come look.
Exactly. Yeah. Forget that Michael Myers crap.
Yeah.
What would be cool is if they did it kind of like the tram ride. You did a little like boat tour, and like Creature from the Black Lagoon was swimming around out there, and then you see like Frankenstein's monster tossing that chick in the water, and like you could do, because if you go on the tram ride now, Norman Bates is over at the Bates Motel, and he comes out and he's like putting a woman in the trunk, his mom in the trunk or whatever. So you could do it that way, and that'd be cool. I mean, if you could add like a little ride to it where everyone like got to see the whole Universal experience. But as far as the Universal monsters like revamped now, I think they're going the right way with Lee Winnell, because I really enjoyed the hell out of Invisible Man, and I'm very much looking forward to his Wolfman. Bummer that Ryan Gosling pulled out, but I do like Chris Abbott a whole bunch, and I'm really, really looking forward to that, especially with Julia Garner attached to it now. But I don't know, the dark universe that they had created didn't work all that well, but I'm really enjoying the Lee Winnell stuff, and we'll see where they go from there.
Yeah.
And then they're doing the Maggie Gyllenhaal Bride of Frankenstein, and Jake Gyllenhaal. Who's playing the monster?
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. That's right. That's
right.
Yeah.
So, that's all super exciting stuff. I'm again with you, Jason. I think that I think that they're going the right way right now. So the only thing that concerns me is that they started filming the Wolfman movie in like February, and it's due out in October. So I mean, like, I mean, hopefully, right?
Five Nights did it.
It's due out October 25th, and you're just like, and I mean, Blumhouse is saying, because I think Blumhouse is producing, if I'm not mistaken.
That's literally the exact same time frame as Five Nights at Freddy's. They shot in February and dropped it in October.
To be fair, though, this movie has been in production for years. It's not like this got rushed into production. Like Ryan Gosling and them had been working on this for a few years. So this thing was ready to rock and roll when they started shooting it. So they could make that time. They could make that window.
I mean, I hope so. And if they do, all I hope is that, I just hope that it's a good Wolfman movie. That's it. I'm also, I know that there are people that don't like The Wolfman from 2010. I actually enjoyed that one.
I like that.
I liked that interpretation of The Wolfman, and I don't know. I like Lee Winnell a lot. I liked a whole bunch of his film projects. I don't think he rarely ever makes anything bad, and I don't think I've seen actually a bad movie of his that he's written and directed. So,
he's fun when he's on screen too. He's great as one of the two dudes in the Insidious movies, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that all of it could end up being good and entertaining, and I kind of see the reasons for it. I'm not sure what other news stories were big recently, but I honestly think as we're already a half hour in, we should probably get to the topic at hand. So
the big one for me, just really quick, is the announcement of the monkey, who's that Osgood Perkins is directing it. That's Elijah Wood, Rowan Campbell from Halloween Ends. And that it's releasing in February of 2025. So he has not only Long Legs coming out here in a few weeks, but then within less than a year, or 6-8 months, he's got The Monkey coming out, which is a Stephen King adaptation, which it was kind of out of nowhere, just shockingly. Yeah, we got a lot of little stories what Charlize Theron wants to play Pamela Voorhees and stuff like that, but
the whole Crystal Lake thing falling apart, didn't that just kind of break earlier this week, or was it last week?
Oh, that was a couple weeks ago. The Brian Fuller of it all happened 3 weeks ago at this point.
Well, yeah, but they literally just basically said it's dead now.
I didn't hear that it was. No, I thought when they released that article about everything that they were trying to do, they're and they're still working on getting new showrunners for the show. I didn't take it as it was fully dead yet.
It was originally announced that it was dead, but then they came out and were like, it's not dead. We just, we're still working on it. And then a few days later, or the next day, they announced Brian Fuller had left the project. And then that got all of us going, okay, we got, trouble in paradise. What the fuck is happening here? And so now I'm very skeptical of the entire project as a whole at this point.
Yeah. I'd be shocked if this thing happens. I'd be completely shocked.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be shocked if it's great. If it does, because I think Brian Fuller, I think Hannibal is one of the best television shows that we've gotten, from a horror icon being put to television. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why they got rid of him. We'll may never know, but it is what it is. It's a shame that it didn't happen.
Yeah, I agree. It is a bummer, because personally I wanted the show to happen because it would have been proof of concepts for getting other older horror icons into TV series and things like that. Chucky's already proving it, but another bigger one would have been a good follow-up proof. But anyway, so guys, let's talk about desert horror, shall we? And so there, as we talked about this behind the scenes a little bit when we were first, trying to figure out the topic of episode 1, obviously. In a show, horror from the high desert, horror in the high desert was a fun enough and appropriate enough idea. Now, again, as I mentioned, I haven't seen all of the recent horror in the high desert movies. In fact, I haven't seen any of them yet because I've had so much to watch, and I have not really heard whether they're worth it or not, and I haven't had time to watch Jason's videos on them. But when I think of desert horror, the first thing that always pops into my mind is the Tremors series. Because I love creature features. Tremors is one of the earliest creature features I remember really latching onto. I have every movie in the series. I'm always excited about the new installments, even though 6 and 7 were dog shit, essentially. But I still love the series. I even love the actual sci-fi series. Because it was a lot of fun. So, but that movie, those movies couldn't happen anywhere except the desert nowadays, because the creatures, the graboids, they have a hard time getting through cement and asphalt and anything that modern society is generally created with nowadays. So these creatures only, well, maybe not only, but definitely work the best in the desert. And part of why I think they're so effective as desert movies is because when you're in the desert, you are completely vulnerable. You have nowhere to hide unless there are giant boulders around. And the graboids, both Jaws and the graboids, were the two things that I had the most nightmares about growing up. And I think especially because I live in Arizona and have my whole life, and I've known, you know, a lot of my family has owned ranches and things like that, where I've gone to places very similar to the places depicted in Tremors. And I'm like, so my mind was always making nightmares for me, like, don't touch the ground, you know, that kind of thing. Tremors were the original The Floor is Lava to me. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got the iconic scene of them kind of like pole vaulting from boulder to boulder, which is like, you know, how we envisioned it in our heads as kids playing, you know, jumping from couch to couch.
Yep, exactly.
I reviewed all 7 and each individual episode of the TV series on my channel at one point. It's such a fun watch. I think at that point, Cold Day in Hell might not have been out. I did eventually. That's the last one?
No, 6 was A Cold Day in Hell, and then I think they did one more after that. Yeah, like the island, Shrieker Island was 7.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah. And I mean, we can't forget, of course, the failed television series with Kevin Bacon that was recorded and then didn't end up happening.
Well, the pilot was recorded, not the
pilot
series.
Was shot, yeah. I'd love to see that. It's such a bummer that didn't happen. I don't know how you fucked that up. Like, I don't know how that doesn't get a series order with Kevin Bacon returning. That's such a big name, and the franchise has, I mean, it's proven successful. It has 7 films and a television series already. I mean, you already showed that you can make a television series out of it. And with Kevin Bacon returning to the franchise, it's like a no-brainer. I genuinely don't understand how that one failed. It must have been an absolute shit show of a pilot for them to be like, sorry, I want to do it, but we just can't. It's so bad.
Yeah, that's hard
I would
to
have been
think.
Like, look, try again. Like, you know, if I had Kevin Bacon and he was on board, he seemed to be pretty excited about it. So I'd love to see it. I don't know if it'll ever surface, but I would love to see the episode if it ever happens. I would also love to see that Dark Tower episode that they filmed and never released. I don't know who did Tremors. Who is that?
I'm not sure who did the pilot episode for that one.
I thought it was one of the bigger ones, like an HBO or a Showtime or something. I'd have to look it up, but
I can't remember. But I think one of the reasons why it might have, my biggest issue with it when we watched the trailer was that the graboid they finally showed at the end looked dog shit because it was all CG, and it like had this weird snake. Like, it didn't even look like the graboid snake. It just was like a little parasite snake coming out of its mouth, and it just looked stupid. And like that was a big bummer for me because the freaking creatures were the coolest parts. But yeah, because it's the last shot. Let me see if I can pull it up, do a screenshot of it and pull it up for everyone to see. Because
I'm seeing the pictures right now. I didn't realize Fred Ward was also there. Holy shit! How do you fuck this up?
Wait, he wasn't in the pilot. He died before the pilot, didn't he?
It says that he's attached. It says stars Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, and it was made by the Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah, Sci-Fi. That's probably why the effects are dreadful.
Yeah.
It says Fred Ward. Let's see. So it says 2018, and Fred Ward died in 2022. You're, way off. He only died 2 years ago.
Damn, okay.
Yeah. So, man, it had Fred Ward too? Fuck.
Yeah.
How do you mess that up?
That would have been awesome. God damn it. Oh, yeah, you can, so the thumbnail for the Tremors trailer on YouTube has the fucking thing on it. Hang on, I'll just take a screenshot of it and show it to everyone.
From the director of Cube. I love that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Cube was awesome.
Cube's great.
Huh. He directed Splice. He directed In the Tall Grass. Huh. crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
don't know why that didn't happen.
That original Tremors, like, to me, what I love about it is it's this like throwback to the old like 50s, 60s creature featured, watch a double feature at the drive-in or send your kids to go watch like 2 matinees in a row. Roger Corman kind of, just this perfect love letter to all of that stuff. And like Cecil had mentioned earlier, Jaws. It's this amazing, I love that it just doesn't take itself too seriously. It's so economical on the runtime, and which is something I'm appreciating more and more the older I get. Like, man, if you can tell your story within an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes, and it can always be moving, and you have these memorable, fun characters, like, man, this movie is the original Tremors is an absolute blast. I have a lot of fun with the sequel as well, but like the original, I could put that in like any day of the week.
I've got the new Graboid on screen for everyone to see.
Oh yeah.
It's fucking terrible. Like, it's terrible. It's not.
Isn't that not like a concept trailer? But that's not a finished product.
No, this was
right.
the trailer to try a proof of concept trailer for the pilot. This was all footage taken from the pilot. So this was the Graboid in that pilot. And it's fucking awful. Like, it's just a big worm. Like, it doesn't even have any of the personality or design of the original. There's no beak. The snakes aren't actually snakes. It's just a fucking, it's a cheap knockoff of Alien in my opinion with this.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a big problem. I mean, that probably wasn't the only reason it didn't go, but to me, that's a pretty big thing to have look terrible.
Yeah, I don't know why you would just bring back the original Graboid and get the people who did the effects for it.
Yeah.
Makes no sense, especially since they have 7 films and TV series they go off of. It's not like they don't have material to draw from.
Well, and the Graboids were always one of the most tangible fucking animals in creature features. At least the subterranean ones. When you get to shriekers and ass blasters, it gets very CG. But the actual ground worms are always looked so dope.
Yeah.
So anyway, Tremors is the first thing I always think of when it comes to desert horror. Who wants to jump in next?
I was gonna just jump in and agree kind of like with what you and Davey were talking about. Like, Jaws is one of my favorite summer movies, and you could also throw Tremors in there in terms of like the desert version of Jaws. And kind of commenting on what you guys are talking about in terms of like the runtime, I do think that nowadays movies like this would go easily into like the 2 hour and 5 minute runtime, and you can shave like 35 minutes of that off and have a really good, tightly paced film that we've seen so many times in the past. Like, you go back to the 80s, and I mean, Tremors was 1990, and you get a film like that, and you're able to, tell a story, in a fun, fast-paced story, needless to say, in about an hour and a half. That's going to keep the audience engaged. I think so many times nowadays, films just overstay its welcome, and it just kind of is like dragging, and you're like, okay, holy shit, we're at an hour and 40 minutes now. This could have ended like, 8 to 10 minutes ago, but we're still going. So, I do think that if we can go back to this, maybe, audiences will be able to sit down a little bit more, because now you get a film like, that's an hour and a half, you're like, oh dang, that's not bad at all. Like, but you see that it's like over 2 hours, and you're like, it's only 25 minutes more, but you're like, that's 25 minutes additional in terms of screen time that can drag. So I always get excited when I see a movie is like an hour and a half or even an hour and 40 minutes. Like, I'll take that. I always get excited because I'm like, you know what, this should hopefully be fast paced, because within those first 20 minutes you want to have something happen, so that way it can keep you engaged. Otherwise it's just going to be a snooze fest, if you ask me.
Lean and mean. It's got to be lean and mean. And trust me, I need to take my own advice, because I finished the first draft of DNN 2 last night, and it's 143 pages, which is 2 hours and 23 minutes. And I'm like, can't do that. Can't do that.
Oh, man. Hey, you know what? That's awesome, though, that you're able to compile, 143 pages of content to go with. And dang, I'd love to read the initial draft of it whenever this comes out. Literally,
I have one scene left to write, which may or may not be a funeral scene, but everything else is completely written, and then I'm going to go through and just tighten it up. I tend to be a little ellipsis crazy when I'm writing, giving everyone little pauses all the time and shit like that, which I need to just eliminate. And I do some extra description that most scripts don't usually need, because it's like the description is stuff that production design and everything will handle. But yeah, so it's long, but it is the most full descriptive version of this version of the script. So I do plan to send it to a few people. If you actually are curious to read it, I'll happily send it to you, because I do want to get some feedback on it. But I'm very happy with it. I'm excited for people to read it, and I did a lot of really fun shit. And I didn't censor myself. I just let it all ride. I just wrote it all, and wherever it ends, and then I can pare back from there. So, but I keep that in mind, exactly what you're saying, Braden, because I indeed feel the same way when horror movies are just like, you get to an hour 45 and you're like, they got to be wrapping this up right. And a lot of times they're just starting act 3. And I'm like, oh, fuck, come on. Like, I got kids at home. It's late. I'm old.
Yeah, I think... and honestly, you know what? And I just want to comment, like, your writing style is a lot better than mine. Like, I feel like I get to a certain point and I have to, like, step away. Like, there are nights, like, where you would start at, like, page, like, I'm just going to say, like, your most recent one. Like, the last I checked, you were at, like, 70-something, and then the next day you post, you're at 100-something. I'm like, dude, like...
16 pages in a night was the most I did, yeah.
Yeah, I write a few pages and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh shit, dude, like I gotta think about this, like, you know, a little bit more before I continue. But you know, that's awesome. Like, and I know every writer has their own style, but I mean, good for you for, like I said, getting to that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the way I do it, I have extensive notes written out ahead of time, or either extensive notes or a full outline with every beat of the story. I know what I want to happen. I just don't know how all of it will happen until I sit down and write it. But yeah, Davey, you kept trying to jump in, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the way you do it, is you would just put everything out there. You can always pare it back. So even, you know, when you have a movie like Tremors that's, you know, runs an hour and a half, who knows, maybe at some point it was hour 45 or hour 50. And it's like, you know, I come from the world of recording music, and it's one of those things where it's like, embellish everything when you're in the studio, record those acoustic guitars, do those extra backup vocals. You can always pull those out of the mix if you think that they're too much. And I think, yeah, to just echo what you guys are saying, I think with film, it's one of those things, and storytelling in general, that's just something good to remind yourself of, is that just because you wrote it on the paper doesn't mean that it's, necessarily has to be in the finished product. And, yeah, I'd love it if we'd get some more movies like Tremors, a great desert film, a good fun creature feature with some scares, but mostly a pretty fun, you know, somewhat kid friendly. This is like a gateway horror kind of movie, you know?
I was 10 when I saw it, and I fell in love with it. It's funny, there's a particular story with the first Tremors. I love the movie so much. I went to a friend's house, and his mom was the Spanish teacher for our school. And we went to rent a video, right? Because I'm old enough. And I convinced them to rent Tremors. I'm like, it says it's horror, but it's funny. It's like family friendly. They're like, is there cursing? I'm like, maybe like 2 or 3 curse words. And we watched it and we counted, and we got to over 90 curse words by the end. And they like just watched it and were just like laughing. And every time a curse word came up, they'd like go like just staring at me, and so they had fun with that way. But yeah, man, like I was trying to spread the gospel of Tremors since I saw it, you know, when I was 10, 11 years old. It's fucking great. But there's got to be other desert horror that we love. Who's got another desert horror flick or series?
You know, I'll. Jason, go ahead. It sounded like you were gonna say.
No, I was gonna butt in here and say, speaking of creature features, did you guys see the Quiet Place video game announcement like yesterday?
Yeah, I haven't watched the footage, but I'll take
it's
a
like
Quiet
Alien
Place
Isolation.
game. Ooh, well, that makes sense. That makes a ton of sense, actually.
Yeah. Anyway.
That'll be kind of creepy. I think the Alien games terrify the shit out of me when I'm playing those by myself. So like especially because you have your headset on and they can hear they can hear anything that goes on in your headset. So then you're just running away. But no, I was gonna say this is one that I literally just saw like a few months ago for the first time. Shocking is Near Dark. And I honestly loved it. I know that Chad Sumner, who was in the chat earlier, he absolutely loves this movie. He's told me numerous times that I need to see it. I know Des had watched it recently. I watched it with her while I was visiting her. And I mean, genuinely really loved it. Now, I had thought initially, because I knew really nothing about it. So you look at the poster, and I thought since Bill Paxton is like on the poster, I thought that he was going to be like the main good guy of the movie. He is very much not. So, but he plays a character named Severin, and he is just a badass in this movie. I really do love Bill Paxton. So sad that he passed away way too soon. Because I'm sure that we would have also, I'm sure that he would have been in Twisters coming up too. He would have at least made an appearance in it. But I mean, he's fantastic in this movie. Adrian Pasdar, who plays Cowboy Caleb in the movie, is great, and Catherine Bigelow's direction. Holy shit! Great. Really, really good vampire desert flick, and I couldn't have enjoyed this movie any more than I did, and it played out again just differently than I thought it was going to. But I'm glad I really gave this one a chance. And this comes around the time, like, you guys remember, Jason, I think you commented on my post earlier this year. There's these vampire movies I'm just now seeing for the first time. I just saw The Lost Boys for the first time this year. So, I'm definitely curious to see what else there is. Obviously, there's a lot out there that I haven't seen, but Near Dark is the most recent desert horror movie that I can think of that I just very much enjoyed, and just a wonderful vampire flick too. So,
go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, ironically enough, the kid in that movie, Joshua John, is played by an actor named Joshua John Miller, who I grew up watching movies with him. River's Edge. And plenty of other things, Death Warrant and whatnot. But he actually, funny enough, he just directed that horrendously awful The Exorcism movie with Russell Crowe. And I didn't even realize until like after we had done the review, not only was that filmed in 2019, but also that he's the son of Jason Miller, who plays Father Karras in The Exorcist, and this was kind of like his homage to his father, and it's like that bummed me out because like I really like that kid like as an actor, and I really liked the Final Girls, which he wrote, and I was really pulling for that movie, but it was just dreadful. It was like one of the last movies I just watched and reviewed, but because he brought it up, I thought I'd bring up Joshua. He's great in those movies, but man, he cannot direct.
Can I just say too? I mean, and maybe I haven't seen it. I saw the trailer and I was like, you know what, this doesn't look great. I haven't even seen The Pope's Exorcist, which Des said last year she went to go see it with I think her aunt or something like that, and she said that she got up and had to walk out of the theater, and I'm like, that doesn't really scream, hey, I need to see this immediately. I'm like, and I
enjoyed that one, honestly.
I love Russell Crowe in that movie.
Yeah, I thought he was really fun.
See, I don't know, but if he's doing movies like this new Exorcism movie, I'm like, Russell Crowe, you do realize that you can say no to a script, right? Because there have just been these movies that he's been in that have just been like either super big budget and terrible, or they're just like, I don't know.
Have you met Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
He's been making great movies lately.
Nicolas Cage is having a renaissance.
Hell yeah, he is.
in legitimately almost every single. He's in so many movies now every year, and I'm just like, it's like ever since Willy's Wonderland, he's doing all of these. Just it's whatever script he can get a hold of. Like I'm like, holy shit, dude, this is insane. Like it's like Nicolas Cage is in as many movies as he was coming out when I was a kid. Like I remember all those movies that were coming out. So.
Well, he said that he got into an incredible amount of debt and that he just started taking project after project. And then once he got paid up on his debts and he was finally in the green again, he started being much more choosy with his projects. And that's why in the last few years, he's made so many like good movies, one after the other after the other. And I think he's about to give... I'm only predicting because we haven't seen much, but I have a feeling he's about to give one of his best performances ever in Longlegs.
I hope so. It sounds like it will be.
Yeah.
I'm hearing nothing but good things about that, by the way, too. So, you know.
Yeah.
Davey, do you have any desert horror you gravitate towards?
Man, I think the one that stands out to me is, From Dusk Till Dawn is like the one that I think is, a crown jewel as far as desert horror goes. I love the mixture. When you find that right mix of comedy and horror, I think that, Robert Rodriguez and Tarantino's style blend really well together. I like seeing them together more than separate. Like Planet Terror and Death Proof I thought were like okay. But I enjoy seeing this kind of thing a lot more, where they kind of play into each other's strengths. I think, the fact that it's kind of two genres mixed together and, the isolation, I think, of the desert, like you were saying with, with Tremors, is that, the desert puts you in a spot where you're vulnerable. And, here in From Dusk Till Dawn, they're not only are they in the middle of the desert, but they're in this like, brutal biker bar that, the whole situation is about as dangerous as it can get. And then we find out that all these people are vampires. And the movie, to me, it just has that comic booky feel, like something you would get from, like Dawn of the Dead or Dead Alive or Evil Dead 2, just that really nice, like fun comic booky feel. And I love a montage where people get ready to fight the big bad. Really love the scene in the storage room where they're like filling up the condoms with the holy water and the super soakers, and the friggin' jackhammer steak is pretty awesome as well. So yeah, that's one that sticks out to me. Really funny, entertaining, love the gore, love the characters. One of my favorite Clooney performances of all time. I'm
one of the better Tarantino performances too, honestly.
Oh yeah, he's really good. He gets to
Gecko Brothers.
He gets to work his foot fetish in there and everything. He gets everything he wants. You get Cheech gets to play like 3 or 4 characters. The opening is just what an incredible, like memorable, like that in and of itself is like its own movie. Like Tarantino could make an entire movie out of that opening scene and maybe what happens right before. So yeah, to me, I just think, this movie is about as perfect as it gets when you're looking for a desert horror. And then the whole series fell right off the cliff immediately after.
So for me, first off, that opening scene was just a showcase of how amazing Michael Parks was as an actor. Another showcase being Tusk. But the funny thing you say that is it fell off a cliff. So you're saying it fell off of the cliff at the back of the bar where everything else.
Where it's a pyramid.
Yeah, but the funny thing about that is those came out at a time. I feel like the late '90s, early 2000s went through this grouping of straight to video and DVD sequels of horror movies where the second one was trash, but the third one was good. I'm telling it happened with From Dusk Till Dawn. I like the third one.
Hangman's Daughter.
Yeah, the Sometimes They Come Back movies. The third one was good. The second one was shit. Like so many movies that had straight to DVD sequels, the second one was trash, and then they're like, wait, we can't do that again. Let's get back to what they did in the first one. And oftentimes the third one was pretty much a clone of the first one, but it was always better for it. I felt like that From Dusk Till Dawn fell into that category personally, but you actually someone just to jump to the chat, which we haven't yet, Jamie Hart says John Carpenter's Vampires is a pretty good desert horror as well. I think that could qualify
It
for
also
sure.
has a direct-to-DVD sequel
Yep.
with
yep.
John Bon Jovi.
With John Bon Jovi, Los Muertos or whatever it was.
It's fun. I always get that series confused with the Dracula 2000 series because they both had like sequels that were very like similar and things like that.
That one's got two.
Yeah, exactly. Jason, I know I alluded to it earlier. I don't know if you want to talk about it right away, but the horror in the high desert stuff. Yeah, what's all that stuff about?
So, what's been really cool about the horror in the high desert thing is that, I started frequenting. My channel has become kind of synonymous with found footage at this point because I cover a lot of found footage on the channel because I really love the subgenre. And so me and my wife had been covering a ton of ultra low budget stuff. And we went through this period where we're just doing one after the other. And we fell upon the horror in the high desert. We watched a little bit of it, and I don't know what happened, but we fell off of it. We didn't watch it all. And then we were contacted by the director, Dutch, and he was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know I have this movie and this and that. And I was like, okay, the guy's writing me. I get a lot of messages from like really indie found footage directors, like, please watch my movie and talk about it. We made this for $5, and most of them are garbage, honestly. And I hate to say that, but they're just like people put them together in 5 seconds. But every once in a while, you do get a really solid film. I've gotten quite a few at this point from these guys, and definitely looking forward to seeing what they do next. So I actually got to know Dutch. We've talked quite a bit over the last couple of years now, and he has the third one made. He's supposed to send me a screener of it. I don't know. I'm going to have to contact him again. But the first one, I'll say this. Of all the found footage that I've reviewed and talked about, this is the one I get the most comments on where people like genuinely thought it was real until the last few, like, minute or two.
You're talking about the Outwaters?
Even Horror in the High Desert.
What? Oh, it's just called horror. I thought the Outwaters was the first in the Horror in the High Desert series. Am I wrong on that?
No, it's totally a different thing.
Really? Okay.
So there's Horror in the High Desert. There's Horror in the High Desert 2 Minerva, and then there's Horror in the High Desert 3, which I think is, I can't remember what he's calling it. But no, they have nothing to do with each other.
Huh.
The Outwaters has a bunch of like little shorts on Screenbox, I think, that are like little extra bonus things, deleted scenes or like extra added content kind of things. But
Okay.
that's the only extended universe stuff of that movie that I'm aware of.
So
Horror in
Outwaters
the
is
High
just
Desert.
also found footage that takes place in the desert that came out like at the same time as Horror in the High Desert. Okay.
Horror Outwaters is a little later because Horror in the High Desert I think is 2022 and I think the Outwaters is 2023. So not like a lot later or anything, but I think it's like a year after.
Okay.
But yeah, the Horror in the High Desert that that we were just talking about, I get comments constantly, and that video's got to be 2 years old at this point, and I still like on almost like a weekly or bi-monthly basis, I still get comments from people who are like, "Oh my God, I thought this thing was real." Like the whole way through. So it very much has that feel, and it's actually what initially made me turn it off because it felt so authentic and so real that I was kind of like bored with it to an extent, where it felt like I was watching like a Discovery Channel or some kind of show. And but when you stick through it, it's actually quite good. And I did like the ending. There's not a lot happening. It really feels like a mockumentary, kind of like Lake Mungo, where it's like it's slower paced and it's just interviews with people the whole time. With very little footage. But yeah, and then the second one takes like a detour and handles some other case that was like around the same area. And then the third one's supposed to go back to the story from the first one. So, anyway, so that's Horror in the High Desert. As far as my picks for this, I know. I mean, I could go obvious with something like The Hills Have Eyes. I mean, that's the kind of think that most people would go with that. That's like the OG desert horror film since Wes Craven made that in, what, 77? I'm sure there's others before that, even if you go back to like the shitty Beast of Yucca Flats garbage like that.
Oh my god, dude.
3,000
wow,
out there.
Yeah, I just got tingles.
But I would go with something like, and I can't recommend the channel Good Bad Flicks enough, another Cecil. But
Great stuff.
there was a little duology series from some the Ford brothers, I think is what their names are. They made a series called The Dead 1 and 2. The first one, the second one's set in India, and the first one, am I getting this backwards? Let me look it up really quick. I forget which. Africa. Africa's the first one. India's the second one. And it's all set, like the first one's all set out in the desert of Africa, and it's like a zombie movie that's very like lower budgeted, but like the production hell that they went through to make this movie the movie itself is actually good, but once you find out what they had to go through to make it, it's like fascinating it even got finished and they got back alive. So I'm really always into the movie, but I'm also into like how it got made, and that can always add to the fun of a film. There was a movie called The Evil Within that came out maybe a few years ago where you look at the production side of things. It's got Michael Berryman in it and the dude from Boondock Saints, the main one,
Sean Patrick
Flannery or whatever. But when you look into those production sides of things and you see just, terrible thing after crazy thing after wild thing, it adds to that, enjoyment of the film, because you can kind of see it as you're watching it, like all the production issues that weren't just like studio interference or something. We're talking about people that were like robbed at gunpoint, were told they were going to have their heads chopped off, like people went missing from the production, like they all got like really sick with like different diseases like malaria and dysentery, and like it's like wild stuff. So, and they're cool movies and they never are talked about enough. And of course I'm going to have to bring up like lesser known stuff because that's what we do over here. But has anyone seen the Dead movies?
No.
I have not.
Okay. Well, then The Hills Have Eyes.
No.
You guys have heard of those, right?
No, I mean that's part of what's nice about all of us bringing our different experiences, right? You can bring up movies that none of us have heard of, but the audience may want to check it out. We may want to check it out. There's absolutely reasons to talk about that kind of stuff. Now there's a couple of other desert movies that we can talk about, but realistically, there's also almost a subgenre within a subgenre, right? There's the horror genre, there's the subgenre of desert horror, and then within that, or at least adjacent to it, would be the subgenre of desert road horror, which would include movies like, Breakdown, The Hitcher, Joyride, Rest Stop, Wolf Creek, even to an extent like The Devil's Rejects. Right, things that take place, and even I guess to an extent, Texas Chainsaw. Yeah. I mean, it's places in the middle of America, along a long road highway in the desert, and bad shit happens all the time in a million different ways. Like all of those, I think, could be considered desert horror, and a lot of them are very, very quality horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think what really justifies desert horror is that we spend our primary amount of time in the actual outside desert, and that the elements become a part of the survival, right? That you are not only dealing with whatever monster or, killer or whatever it is, but you're also like, I can't stay out here because the elements are going to kill me if the monster doesn't. I'm going to die of dehydration. I'm going to die of heat stroke. I'm going to die of, whatever. So that adds to it. And then there's that just endless desert that you can't walk through. You know, you're going to be walking through the dunes for the rest of your life, like in, you know, some movie in fucking the plains of Egypt or something.
Braden, Davey, do you guys have any other? I mean, I've got a list here, so I don't want to name them all. You know, I want to give everyone a chance to bring some up here. So,
I doubt anyone will name mine.
No, I mean, like, you guys had brought up The Hills Have Eyes. I've actually never seen Wes Craven's Hills Have Eyes. I've seen the remake, though.
The remake's
And
better.
yeah, I agree.
I've heard that the remake is better, and that's one of those very rare cases that I've ever heard that the remake is better. But I very much enjoy that movie. I thought that it was absolutely fantastic, and I mean, it's like an ultimate horror story, like, you know, getting stranded out in the desert and all of this shit fucking just happens. Like, you know, you've got these horrible like people that are that are basically just like watching you. And I mean, that's like always a fear, is like when you're out, like I'm always out and I'm looking around. Shit, I'll walk into a restaurant, walk to my car and be looking around like to see who the hell's around me. So, you know, I do think that Hills Have Eyes is, the remake at least, is very well directed. I love the color grade of the movie. It feels very warm, and it just feels like you can feel like the tension and the sweat of the characters just watching it. And obviously the very end with our character getting covered in absolute blood is just always a wonderful sort of horror mimic that I think is just great. I really do. Again, that comes down to the color, the use of color that really stands out when he walks out and he's completely red with this just super warm backdrop. So yeah, I very much love The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Hitcher is a good one to talk about because it's, you know, he's put in this spot, you know, our main character, where it's the Hitcher is basically like, well, I'm not going to leave you alone. So you're either going to walk around in the desert and you're going to die that way, or the police are going to pick you up for one of my crimes that I framed you for, and just kind of puts him in a spot to where it's like, you know, you're going to have to kill me to get out of this. So I do think like the desperation is kind of, you know, approaching our protagonist from a couple different angles. I'm really looking forward to, they're doing like a 4K restoration of that right now.
Thank God.
Nice.
That I think is coming out soon, because the only version that I could find, like when I was searching for it, because I just watched it for the first time earlier this year.
Oh.
The only version I could find is like a 4:3 aspect ratio.
Terrible.
And it like and it looks, it's just muddy. And so with everyone telling me this movie's so classic and so amazing, I felt like the presentation sort of took something away from that experience I had, but I really enjoyed the story at its heart. So I'm like, man, this is one that I can't wait to rewatch and hopefully gain like much more appreciation for, because I mean, Rutger Hauer is mesmerizing, tractor beam eyes, you know, scary without having to do very much at all. And it kind of plays like a Tales from the Crypt episode that really gets, you know, kind of stretched out, but stretched out in a way where I feel like, you know, it still moves along briskly enough. And yeah, C. Thomas Howell kills it as well. Jennifer Jason Leigh, like that's another thing too. Not many people in the movies too sometimes when we're talking about these desert features. But I think The Hitcher is definitely one that stands out to me for sure.
Well, The Hitcher was just kind of a beefed up duel, right? Steven Spielberg's first movie was desert horror, technically, desert thriller at least, and The Hitcher just added on foot sections of the video game. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So yeah. But I actually quite liked the Hitcher remake with Jake Busey too, just because Jake Busey's fucking creepy as hell looking.
You mean the Hitcher sequel?
Oh, was that a sequel? I thought it was a remake.
So part 2, which is called like I've Been Waiting for You, that's with Jake Busey.
Oh,
and
I'm
C. Thomas
confusing.
Howell returns.
Okay.
And then there's the remake with Sean Bean.
Oh, it was Sean Bean in the remake. That's right. Okay. I knew there was a Jake Busey involved somewhere, but yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, has anyone seen the sequel, Hitcher 2? Because like almost no one's ever even heard of that movie. So you have seen it.
Clearly I have, yeah. It stuck out enough that that the man with the teeth was in it.
Yeah.
So another sort of subsection of desert horror that someone brought up here. I can't remember. It might have been Necromechanic. Anyway,
Necromechanical.
there you go. Revenge was also one of those road horror movies recently, but they also brought up Legion. I think. Oh no, Jamie brought up Legion. Okay, so Legion is a good desert horror, which made me think of the Prophecy series, which was also, on the desert, on the roads along the desert and smaller communities and stuff like that.
Well,
so, yeah, and then I think Southbound could also be considered similar vibe there too. So, yeah, there's so much, and again, there's more. I think Jason, you brought up in the chat a while back, didn't you bring up Rubber as a desert horror thing, or was that one of the other boys? Someone mentioned Rubber in the chat.
I mean, there's so many. There's so many to talk about. That's such a silly ass movie. It's definitely as weird as the concept is. It's much more artsy than you would have expected it to be. That Quentin Duplex or whatever the hell his name is that directed is definitely an interesting fella. I think the reason I'm curious, Davey, the reason that you liken The Hitcher to Tales from the Crypt, I would assume it's because it feels so much like that the cop, handcuffed to the dude in the desert episode.
Yeah, very similar to that feel, and I think just there's something about the. Like, you can summarize the story of The Hitcher in like one sentence. Like, that's for a lot of movies, that's really difficult to do. But at its essence, it's a very simple, Edgar Allan Poe type story, and told in this, cinematic fashion. So yeah, but definitely, I feel like a lot of the Tales from the Crypt, they play with the desert quite a bit. And then maybe, Twilight Zone, a lot of the Twilight Zone was filmed out there. So I just get those vibes when I watch a movie like The Hitcher, where I'm like, oh, this feels like one of those anthology horror TV shows.
Yeah, I love The Hitcher. I grew up on it. I've seen it 100 times. It's a favorite of mine. So I just showed it to my wife in the last 6 months, or not even, probably 3 months ago or less. And yeah, as you said, we've never gotten a proper release on it. As I showed you, I have the VHS of it, and then I got some terrible freaking DVD, but it's on HBO. And but when you watch it on HBO, it's small.
Yeah, it's the 4:3 cut. It's like a television cut.
But no, it's not even 4:3. It's when you play a DVD in certain players and they make them that small screen, it's still widescreen, but it's smaller in the middle of the screen. I don't know why some players do that to some DVDs, but that's how HBO is playing it. And I was like, what the fuck? So I think we ended up watching my terrible DVD copy. That's a burn, I think, because I don't know why this one never got a proper release. Such a weird thing, because the other two have proper releases, and this is the classic. This is the original. I don't get it. These are the Dead movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'll have to check those out.
Necromechanical.
Yeah, I mean, they're not great films, but definitely check out the Good Bad Flicks stuff with them.
Nice.
Anyway, and then I was gonna just say there's a lot of really good zombies in the desert films. Yeah. It Stains the Sands Red is another really cool one. That one's actually conceptually really cool, because I had said up until around that time that the zombie movie subgenre was basically just done. It was it's just recycled. I could recite the entire framework of every zombie movie up until that point. And then we got a slew for a few years of these very unique, deconstructed, reconstructed zombie films with all of these unique plot lines. And I was kind of it was almost the response to me, the rebuttal of oh yeah, you think we're dead? We're undead, we're coming back. And it Stains the Sands Red was a really cool example of that, because it's this very slow pursuit. We went back to the slow zombie, and it's a woman who's making her way through the desert as a zombie's in tow and and chasing after her, but it's like this slow, relentless death that's approaching her, and it's kind of like an allegory for dying out in the desert. Death is always chasing you as you're trying to escape it. It's like it's just this endless wasteland, and her just trying to get away from it endlessly is really cool. And then there was that Martin Freeman one, Cargo, on Netflix. That was also really cool. And I feel like zombies in the desert work really well together.
Yeah, it can. I've just gotten tired of the zombie subgenre myself, so I
don't blame.
So a couple recommendations. Necromechanical said Feast mainly takes place indoors, but they're in the desert, and same thing with Demon Knight, right? Both take place in a building.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the Real Fifth Beetle said, would Reeker be considered desert horror? Yeah, I definitely think the Reeker series would. Creatures set in the desert, along with the Burrowers. That was a Western, Western creature
good
horror
old Western
movie.
horror.
Yeah,
that's
lots
another
of that.
subgenre right there. Is Western horror set out in the desert.
Bone Tomahawk, perfect example.
Bone Tomahawk, hell yeah. The Reeker series, I'm going to assume 90% of people have never even heard of those.
I found them years ago, and I forgot about them. But, it was Reeker, and then Rise of the Reeker, and then I think there was even a third one.
I think there was only two, but I'll look.
Okay. You might be right. I don't know. The one I had a question about, do you think this would be considered desert horror? Is it a stretch? Is what about Nightbreed? Because isn't Median kind of out in the desert?
I wouldn't say desert. It's in a cemetery.
Oh, that's fair.
So,
okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Misremembrance on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of all the ones that I had locked and loaded. Obviously, we can dive deeper on any of them if we want, but are there any that we're missing, audience, or anything that we didn't bring up, Davey and Braden? Anything that we're missing from you guys?
I don't think so. I'd want to talk about Beast of Yucca Flats some more with Jason, but I don't know if we do that here. That movie it's a marvel because there's not one bit of on-screen dialogue in that movie. It's all ADR. It's amazing how they did that. The cheapest friggin' way to make a movie. Good old Coleman Francis.
I mean, I could obviously go for a while. I have quite a list of things, but I didn't know what to prepare for. I didn't know if we were going to do like 50 titles or not. I've seen a lot of desert horror, a lot of found footage. Found footage does really well out in the desert as well, with movies like The Objective. And there's a really cool movie called Savage Land, which is one of my favorite found footage films I've ever watched. Borderland is excellent. But as I said, I mean, there's just so many like lesser known titles, like that Carnage Park with the girl being chased by the sniper. Desperation, which is a Stephen King adaptation with Tom Skerritt and Steven Weber and Ron Perlman playing the crazy cop that's pulling everyone over. And Pitch Black, I mean, there's another one.
Yeah,
that's another huge one, obviously.
That's Desert Planet,
huge franchise.
Yeah,
but that's a different planet. But it's still
it's cool. Yeah, absolutely. No, desert. It's a whole desert planet. I think that absolutely counts. Yeah, no, I mean, well, that's, again, this was just the first episode, so it was a little bit loose, but, we can really dial it in for future ones if we want to do like top 10s or top 20s or anything along those lines. We certainly can. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think it'd be a good time. But yeah, just a little looser. Davey?
There's one big one we forgot because technically Antarctica is a desert. So The Thing is technically a desert horror movie, and maybe sweeping in again, maybe just the best of the bunch if it's gonna win on a technicality.
I think that could be a good idea for next episode is horror in the snow.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Kind of flip it from hot, to cold.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of good ones out there. A lot of fun. Again, the zombies are prevalent in the snow too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Dead Snow are a couple of really great zombie movies.
And
in the
Tremors
snow.
had one in the snow too. That's
Well,
a cold day.
Oh yeah.
It was supposed to be in the snow. It was actually in the desert that they just colored white. Like, it was so
Great
stupid.
Evil Alex says
That
Resident Evil 3. What was that? Extinction?
Apocalypse.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
is it Extinction or Apocalypse? I can't
Oh no,
remember.
I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah,
it's-
Extinction.
I remember that one being pretty fun. Like, out of all those movies, I was like, well, it's kind of fun. It kind of rips off Day of the Dead a little bit, like with the zombies getting smart kind of thing, with that side plot, or just pays homage. You know, I'll
Yeah.
be nice about it. But yeah, that one. I mean, kind of a. You know, one of those things with the Resident Evil movies where it's like, it sounds good as like an idea. Like, you're like, all right, and Las Vegas is going to be partially buried in sand. And it's like, okay, and then what else do you do? You know? So it stands out because of that, but I don't remember much of it, you know, gosh, after seeing it the first time.
I guess
I
technically,
just rewatched all six of them for the channel. Terrible. I like the first one, and then all the rest are garbage. And then they had that new one. They just, for some reason, you know, with that franchise being as popular as it is, with as much lore to draw from, as such source material as they have to go off of, they just cannot seem to do that right. Whether it's that Netflix TV series or that new, who did the new one? Johannes Roberts? Did he do? It was him, right? That did Welcome to Raccoon City.
oh, it might have been. I'm not sure.
I thought it was him, but it's just like he kind of tried to do it. It's like, just start at the first game,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know, go to the mansion, move it into the police department, into the second movie. Like, follow the game structure at least for the first three.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they can't seem to get that franchise right. It
Well-
seems like a slam dunk easy one, but
I liked
you
the
know,
second one. Apocalypse was great.
It was Johannes Roberts. Sorry to
There you
cut
go.
in.
No, you're good.
No.
it was Johannes Roberts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I mean, they had Romero all lined up and pumped to do the movie that would have been based on the very first game. And for whatever reason, they said no, thank you. So I'm like, to say no to the legend that created the genre is kind of wild to me, especially when it would have fallen in line with the game. But
Where was
Yeah.
he in his career at that point? Out
I
of
mean,
curiosity.
Towards
taking
the
a giant break.
end.
Yeah.
Because you know, he was making like Bruiser and those
Probably
later
Bruiser.
Dead
yeah.
movies. Those are terrible.
I would say Land of the Dead is about 1,000,000 times better than any of those Resident Evil movies.
Land of the Dead's good,
You know,
sure, but that was 20
04.
years
So that,
ago.
yeah, so that was 04. So that would have been after they started with this series. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Resident Evil, it's a friggin' mess. I mean, just at least do a movie based off the fourth game. That's the easiest one to do. That's a la carte. And Evil Alex says the Mummy movies from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh
Those
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
those are fun.
definitely- Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely
Absolutely desert horror, yeah.
action.
They have that
horror, but
Indiana
yeah.
Jones kind of vibe a little bit, you know?
Technically, Army of the Dead, I guess, would be too, even though it's Vegas. It's in the
Yeah,
middle of the desert.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Barry's in the
Necromancer
chat,
Animal.
guys. Barry's in the chat, so we can't make any more fun of him. So just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Barry. H2O isn't a desert horror movie. Necromechanimal says No Country for Old Men.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
thriller, but yeah, I would say he's almost a slasher, so sure.
He plays like Michael Myers that talks a little bit. Yeah.
Anton Chigurh.
He's
What's
scary
the
as all
most you
get
ever
out.
lost in a coin toss? I love him so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great character. One of the great all-time villains.
Yes, definitely. Oh yeah, Maximum Overdrive, definitely.
Oh
Deserty,
yeah, absolutely.
definitely.
God, there's so many that it's hard to think of them all, honestly.
Yeah, there's so many obscure ones too, right? So yeah, you could just endlessly talk about movies set in the desert. It's a great, it's literally like of the four terrains that we're most familiar with. It's the most deadly, so it really pairs well with horror.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You think of desert, you think of death. You think of like, if I went out there without the amenities, if I went out there without air conditioning and water, and I'd be dead in a day.
Yeah.
So it's not livable for us. We're not supposed to be here. Where we live, we are not supposed to be here.
Right.
Humans are
Yeah.
not meant to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
really-
for lizards.
It ratchets up the desperation for sure. What about like Now, how about like horror movies, like a concept that we'd like to see in the desert that we haven't seen before? Like, is there some sort of like, subgenre, like, do you want to see like we've talked about old Western, like what about like a tried and true slasher set in the Old West days? Or I think an Evil Dead film in the Old West would be like really damn fun and just kind of center it around like, one night or one full day, kind of like how those movies are, but just to, sort of move a subgenre into the desert. What do you guys think?
Well, as you were talking, it just occurred to me that Pumpkinhead, I guess, is also considered, could be desert horror.
That's a great one.
But to answer your question,
we almost got that with the Evil Dead, right? Like the spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it. The Evil Dead Ash versus Evil Dead TV series ended in this like post-apocalyptic desert like world that Ash was going to go out and fight Deadites in. So we almost had that. And the opening of Army of Darkness is very deserty.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, I love period piece horror. We got that Out of Darkness, out of the Darkness.
Oh yeah,
recently.
the caveman.
It was like
one,
cavemen.
Right? Yeah.
Horror movie. They're just surviving the elements. So I think it really lends itself well to that stuff. And Evil Dead, of course, I'll take fucking 15 more Evil Dead movies.
Necromechanimal says, bring back Quicksand. I would say so, except I heard recently that Quicksand is bullshit. Like that it's never been what people thought it is.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't actually, you don't actually sink into it the way people think and stuff. So yeah, I think they're just avoiding.
It's just something else. That's just another fear that movies have burned into people's minds. Basically,
Yeah.
is
Cartoons first, probably.
Or cartoons, yeah.
yeah, that's true.
They just made that Quicksand movie. I watched it. Was that this year, babe? I think she's asleep. We watched that Quicksand movie this year. I think it's called Quicksand. It was fucking terrible. Just terrible.
Would you consider, now maybe not, but I'm thinking back on over just the last few years, is Nope technically like a desert type of movie?
I would say so, yeah.
They're in the
There's a
desert.
lot of, I know that there's a lot of dust and stuff like that, especially towards that finale, So and
They're in the desert.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks like a Utah
definitely
ranch
takes
or something.
place.
Or no, it's supposed to be LA ranch, right? Because they're
Yeah.
in LA renting out their horses.
Yeah, so I mean, if like I could, that movie, I loved Nope. So
I did
thought
too.
That was, I mean, I don't understand I don't get hate for it, but I don't know. Like if there's someone that didn't like it, then Jason, it looks like you want to say something.
No, I like Jordan Peele movies. I've never loved a film he's done, but I've never hated a movie. I'm always like 7-8 area with every film he's done.
The only thing I disliked about Nope was the very end, how they disposed of it, so to speak. But everything else, I loved. It's got such an
Very
atmosphere and such a vibe, yeah. And I love the wide open. Again, it was Jaws for the skies. It was really fucking cool. Like I just really loved that. So. But yeah, that's a great one, Braden. That's a great one. I think.
And I'm just like, because I was like more thinking, I'm like, there's got to be like one that's really come out recently, and I was like, oh shit, it's fucking Nope. That's exactly what it is. And yeah, that's my second favorite Peele movie. I mean, the way I rank it, and it's hard to rank Peele films as of now because I don't think that he's made a bad movie per se. So
I think there's clearly an order though.
Yeah. But I would go Us, Nope, and then Get Out.
Wow.
Yeah, Nope is my.
Whoa.
Yeah,
that's
no.
literally the opposite of me.
It's like
Wait,
Well,
so
just the middle one's the same.
How do wait? Cecil, what's your order for it?
So the Get Out and Nope flip between which I like more, but I would say just on a whole movie. Like in a whole movie sense, Get Out, Nope, and then Us. For sure, Us is my least favorite.
Yeah.
Oh wait. Well, no, Us is my least favorite. I was going worst.
Oh, I thought you were going best to worst. Oh,
No,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Who goes worst?
Yeah, who goes worst to best? Yeah.
I
You go worst to best, right?
Anytime I do a ranking, I do worst to best. So like that's what I do. So
I'm right there with you.
Us at.
Now when we say it out loud.
Oh yeah, it's Us in third, Nope at 2, and Get Out at number 1.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
So it sounds like
so we agree then, yeah.
Yeah. No, I've never heard anyone say it out loud backwards like that. That's funny.
No, me neither.
I write it down that way, sure. If like we were doing it, I would start that way if I had it written down. But if I say it out loud without writing it down, it's 100% in order.
Yeah, and it'd always be like, okay, so my number 3 is us, my number
Right.
2 is nope, my number
Right.
like
Sorry. Sorry, my brain was just like, oh, they'll understand this when I tell them this out loud without even just saying the order that I'm going in. They'll just understand exactly what it is. My apologies, everyone.
No, it's cool. We're learning how everyone's brains work on the panel.
Or don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
See, so Barry says us, get out, then nope for me, but I'm assuming he means
But he
us
might be
is
doing
his
it
favorite.
backwards.
Like, yeah, I don't know if he's doing it backwards.
The world has gone topsy-turvy.
Well, I do like Jason's idea for the next episode. We can go with snow horror if we want, but let's ask the audience while we have them here. Are there any particular topics you'd like to see the 4 of us cover? I'm sure we've all covered topics that on our specific channels that people might suggest. And we can say, oh, I already did that on my channel, but doing it all together would be a little bit different and stuff. So, but yeah, if you have any suggestions, guys, throw it in the comments and we will consider it for future episodes. We've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes now. And I think we're almost to wrap up time. But if anyone has any specific questions for us before we go, shout them out. Otherwise, I can cut these gentlemen loose on their Sunday. Again, the plan is to try and make it a monthly episode. Hopefully, to do it on like Friday evenings, so we can get a bit more of a viewership. But again, if you guys have other suggestions, let us know as well. Let's see. Yautja crash lands in the desert. Losing communications, having to survive. Graboids close in and they fight to the death. Predator versus Tremors. I don't think that would be much of a fight. I don't think that would be much of a fight.
Best horror games I'm seeing as a potential. I don't know if you guys play or not.
Yeah.
I've definitely played a fair amount of games that I can talk about for sure.
Yeah,
Same.
Horror games are definitely an easy topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you covered on the old school for that.
Yeah, I got a little bit of everything on that. I love talking about horror games for sure. Maybe some Hammer films. I've never seen any Hammer films, so I don't have anything to contribute on that one.
You've never seen not one Hammer film?
No, I mean, you can name them off. I might be wrong, but I've only seen one Hitchcock movie. So, I don't watch older horror movies, period.
Woo!
I mean,
Have you ever seen a movie with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in it?
Well, they were both in Star Wars, right?
I mean,
not in the same.
No,
universe.
yeah,
They're both
different
in the
movies,
franchise.
right?
Yeah.
One's Dooku, the other's commander of some kind. But, yeah.
Grand Moff.
So no, in other words, no, I have not. I have not seen.
The Hammer, man, I think the Hammer films, they're really fun. The production design and just the style that those movies have. Like, even though every movie isn't a great movie, like, necessarily, they all have like a really consistent, like, the brand is there in every single one. They've got a good look.
I've definitely
you just need to
heard the
skip to
term.
the Dracula. You just need to skip to the Dracula one where they're fighting against it's like a kung fu movie.
Oh god.
That's where you need to get to.
See,
The
why
the
though?
Golden
Why?
Vampires,
Why do I
think.
need to watch those? I don't need to watch
The
those.
Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. That's what it is.
I think the horror of Dracula, the Christopher Lee Dracula, the Christopher Lee playing the Mummy. I thought that Mummy was really good because they basically did the Universal movies, but just colorized them and made them for the '60s. But yeah, there's fun stuff there.
Fair
I've seen
enough.
most.
Fair enough.
They're good.
I've always considered myself a new classics guy. I don't watch much before The Exorcist or Jaws.
I
don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I mean, all the
but
movies
it's
are
like-
built on all those things. So when I watch all those things, I'm like, yeah, okay, I've seen it done better now. But all right, cool.
Psycho. Right. That's it. That's your Hitchcock movie.
No, The Birds.
You've never seen Psycho.
I've never seen the Psycho movies.
Never seen
no.
Psycho.
No, never seen any of them.
The Birds
You've
is
never seen
probably
a single Psycho film.
No, I have them. I think. But, I
The
haven't seen
Birds
that.
is probably my least favorite of the Hitchcock movies.
Oh,
I've
really?
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
just the
wasn't
lack of
great. So
music and the acting isn't very like the guy that from the Time Machine that's the lead in it. I don't like him as a performer. I feel like Hitchcock like going away from music was a big misstep for him. But movies like Rear Window is really suspenseful. I love Vertigo, and I think Rope is probably
Rope is
like
great.
the best
Rope.
one that I've seen that doesn't get talked about very much.
I've
But yeah.
I've seen Rear Window when The Simpsons did it, and then when
Yeah.
Disturbia did it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've seen it in that sense.
Yeah, and then even What Lies Beneath has some elements of Rear. They borrow some of the shots and stuff like that from Rear Window. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if that's I think with Hitchcock, it's like there's just like this mood and this vibe to what he does. I'm not so worried about the technical aspect. I just like the chances that he took and the kinds of performances that he gets as well. Like to turn Jimmy Stewart into what he was able to do with so many different movies is pretty cool because he was known for being totally different than that in the rest of his stardom. So,
Well, from what I understand, he was pretty innovative on the technical side of things. Rear
He
Window
was.
had one of the longest shots, if I'm not mistaken, right? Didn't I hear something
Well,
about
Rope
that?
is all one take.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, Rope is, they only cut it. It was like the reels ran for like 13 or 16 minutes or something. So they would find a creative way of like, they built like a set, almost like a sitcom. They would move the camera from one room to another. They would splice the film on the wall.
Mhm.
So you don't even see the splicing. But yeah, I mean, that's the cool, like for me with Hitchcock, it's like, yes, the technical stuff is impressive and really cool. He's always trying to do something different, but I still think at the heart of the movies, like they're really well told stories. And, he always went for other source material and found a way to interpret it, which I think is sort of like something Kubrick took from Hitchcock as well as the technical aspect. So,
And we wouldn't have the slasher if it wasn't for Hitchcock, for sure. Because not only did he make Psycho, but then he inspired Mario Bava, who made Bay of Blood and Blood and Black Lace, and that inspired obviously Carpenter with both of them. And so yeah. Anyway, I love Rope. I'm so happy you brought up Rope. It's great. Strangers on a Train is excellent. I mean, he has a lot of really damn good movies. I implore you to watch the Psycho films.
I do want to. I've been meaning to for a while. I mean, I know they're iconic and stuff like that. I feel like I know the movie at this point. It's been talked about so much, and like I know all the beats and everything. So, but I hear Psycho 2 is really good too, and I don't know shit about that one. So
I love it.
I have only ever
I love
seen
2, 3, and 4.
the first Psycho movie, and that's it. I have not seen Psycho 2, 3, 4, the remake, nothing. So I've only ever
TV
seen that
series,
first one.
which is excellent.
I mean, hey, I've heard nothing but good things about Psycho 2, and I've heard that it's like a top 5 possible sequel, maybe even top 3, like for horror. So I definitely do plan on checking that out by Halloween ends this year. So I'm definitely excited to watch it because Psycho is one of my favorite horror movies ever. I've got the poster hanging right over here or right there. But I mean, I absolutely love it. I think it's Hitchcock's masterpiece, if you ask me. So
it's funny.
And you were never compelled to watch part 2.
Nope.
Well,
I love part 1, and that's probably why I never watched the second one, because I mean, even though I am a big Halloween fan, I love Halloween, but I've watched all the sequels. I've just never felt like I have to watch Psycho 2. I've never been like that, but I love the first movie.
Didn't Anthony Perkins come back for the sequels?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He directed part 3.
Oh wow.
And his stars. He stars in all 4 of them. There's a huge revelation that happens in part 2 that is like game changing, and you might, having been a big fan of the first one, you might hate it. It's something that's definitely controversial because there's a massive thing that happens. I think it's brilliant, but you have to accept it, and it changes everything. And I couldn't recommend the TV show Bates Motel higher. It's one of the best horror shows ever on television. So I love the Psycho franchise. I even like the little like made for TV movie that they made with Laura Petty back in the day, Bates Motel. and the remake is garbage. But yeah, I love the Psycho movies. That's crazy to me. I as someone who loves, you know, watching every stupid sequel ever made, it's fascinating to me that you have a movie you love so much, you have a poster of it on your wall, and you've never seen the sequels. That's fascinating to me because it's so the opposite of how I am.
Well, the remake is the only one in the series that has Anne Heche's butthole in it, so that's nice.
Yeah.
What?
I watch.
No, apparently I only know that because I've been watching or listening to Kevin Smith's Hollywood Babylon show for the 15 years it's been going. It's a podcast that he does with Ralph Garman, and one of their segments is shit that should not be, and it's moments in movies that made it through that should not be there, but they're there. And in the Psycho remake, when Anne Heche gets attacked, she falls over, and like someone freeze framed and zoomed in, and you can actually apparently see her butthole in the shot.
Oh
And
my God.
So they someone in the audience made a whole song about it. It was like Anne Heche's butthole, Anne Heche's butthole, and like they would play it episode after episode after episode and talk about it whenever they talk about shit that should not be. So that's the only reason.
People have a lot of time.
Shot for
It's
shot,
the
my ass.
internet, Jason. It's the internet. Of course, they have a lot of time.
Yes. Of which all that Hawk 2 stuff right now. It's like a place to go.
Do you like that
good
picture I put in the
God.
chat? The superhero.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw that earlier today. It's
man.
crazy how much that's blown up.
That is nuts.
Wild stuff.
Yeah, the internet's ridiculous. And Braden, one last thing on Psycho 2. So the guy that directed it, Richard Franklin, was kind of like found a way to sort of become like Hitchcock's protege in a sense. He, you know, was inspired by him, did a Q&A with him, and was invited to work on a film. And so just an added thing to get you extra pumped for Psycho 2, that it comes from a guy that, like, you know, really studied the way Hitchcock did things and looked at his work on Psycho 2 to try to get as close to that feel of the original. So I think that'll be really interesting, you know.
You'll really appreciate the opening.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. No, I mean, I'm sold. I've been sold. I just haven't. I just have not gotten around, or again, like now I feel more compelled than ever. I'd say to check it out. So, yeah, I will definitely watch it.
Yeah.
People talk about Psycho 2 like they talk about Amityville 2. They're like, oh my God, it's so good. No one knows it.
That's so good. It's easily the best of the franchise. Amityville 2. It's fucking great. I love it so much.
Yeah.
I
was going to say, I haven't seen any particular questions that we haven't gotten to. There, Wolfman says, not Robert the Wolfman, but Barry the Wolfman. How about vehicle horror? Either a killer vehicle or vehicle used in the movie for killing. Yeah, I feel like we'd run out pretty quick on that, though, wouldn't we? Between Maximum Overdrive and Christine.
No, I got quite a few.
Wraith, another one, you know.
No, I love killer vehicle movies. There's some really rad ones like Monster Man. Anybody see that movie?
Oh, I've heard about Monster Man.
I love that flick. Yeah, I've seen quite a few killer car movies, but you know they're probably going to be more obscure titles. And if you guys haven't seen them, then we wouldn't have any fun talking about it. I realize that now that like we're going to have to talk about movies we've all seen, otherwise like it's not going to be a fun back and forth. I learned my lesson this episode going, I should have stuck with more like obvious things.
Well, no, I disagree because I think there's value to you bringing stuff that people haven't heard about. And if there's people that enjoy desert horror and they've never heard about these ones, and you're talking about them, and your opinion on horror movies is usually okay. But no, I definitely think there's value in that. Nothing to apologize for there. I wouldn't have even known about the Dead movies or a number of the ones you brought up. So that's part of the value you bring with your extensive experience with films. So no, don't rein that in at all. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. In that case, let's go through this list
now. We're out of time for today, so
that's it.
But no, I think keeping it under 2 hours probably a good idea. if I were doing it through StreamYard, I'd be getting fancy clips out of it. But as you guys can see, I prefer to have a bit more of an interesting background, audience members, than just a black space that says StreamYard at the bottom right or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? So I'll chop my own clips if need be. I'll start writing down time codes as we're going if need be. Yeah, I had fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you audience members enjoyed it as well. And we'll get another episode going here in July. And again, hopefully we'll be able to move it to Fridays like originally was planned. I know Braden was dealing with a bit of a bug this week, so hope you're feeling better, my guy.
Definitely feeling a lot better. Thank you, guys. And I'm glad that we were able to bump it so I could be involved with it. So, but yeah, definitely just rested up the last couple days and feel much better. So thank you.
Right on, right on. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for the first episode of Horror from the High Desert. Thank you very much for joining us. Again, the links to all 3 other channels besides The Horror Show are in the description box. Make sure you go subscribe to Davey Deathray, Braden Timmons, and Sinister Cinema Reviews. All great channels. And again, if you subscribe to Sinister Cinema, know you're going to have a lot of videos pop up, but it's only because he watches literally everything. So if you want to know about a movie, or if you didn't even know that movie existed, it's very much worth following and checking out your subscription feed. But yeah, so thank you guys very much for watching, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
guys.
you guys hanging out with us.
So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird. That's been Jason Smith, Braden Timmons, and Davey Deathray. Until next time, remember, guys, stay scared.